Well, it's Canada Day, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, if you're interested, of course. I'll be 58 this fall, and I grew up out in the prairies, out in Alberta, to the youngest of 4 children. My mom and dad, of course, my mom worked at the local college as a cook because my dad had some health challenges and he couldn't farm anymore, so he rented out the land. But his dad moved to Alberta back in 1905, and his name was Curtis. And he got out there and he bought some land, farmed the land for a year, made a bit of money. Then he sold that farm, and then he went and bought another farm, a little bit better land, closer to a town. And of course, man must get lonely out there. You know, he was all by himself, working hard worker. And he decided he needed a wife, so he put an ad in a newspaper out in Winnipeg. It's quite a ways west of Winnipeg. And for a woman that wanted to marry a prairie farmer. So this woman, she answered the ad, and she got on the train. And when she arrived at the town, it was not much more than a whistle stop at that time. There was some businesses, of course, in town and everything, but it wasn't much there. But anyway, she got off the train that day, met him, and they got married that day. They went on to have 9 kids, 6 boys and 3 girls. My dad was one of the boys. And all 5 of his brothers and him all became prairie farmers. And I remember the stories about Grandpa Wilson. He would take the family to church on Sundays, but he wouldn't go inside. He would sit outside, and where everybody went inside. That was, I don't know why, probably because he wanted to just get a break from the noise and from the kids and everything. You know, I'm sure they were a rambunctious bunch. And right now is July of 2020. Today is Canada Day. And we're all still on these quarantines. And that reminds me of a story of my grandfather. They had I think it was 1918. And they all had to stay inside because somebody in that family, in my grandfather's family, got sick. And they were all quarantined in the house for, I think it was 10 days. So this is nothing new. This has all happened before. But this is the first time in history that I think that the people that are well are being quarantined and not the sick. So that kind of makes you wonder, because now it's been since March 13th. I was told to go home, my job, that's it. And I haven't been to work since, and it's July 1st today. And I have yet to meet anybody that's been sick with this. I know of people, I have friends and acquaintances that say, oh yeah, but it's always somebody's brother's friend's father, that kind of stuff, and when I look online, I see, a lot of independent people going around to hospitals, and there's nurses are doing TikTok videos and things like that, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of activity at these hospitals other than and the problem is I couldn't even go to my dentist. A lot of people had to miss out on surgeries. But anyway, that's not what this is about. So anyway, I grew up out on the prairies, and of course I'm on a farm. We're not farming. And I'll tell you, we've come a long way. Because when I was a kid, we bathed once a week. And that's the truth. And it was like you bath once a week, or whether you like it or not, whether you needed it or not. And of course you needed it. And I didn't realize I probably smelled really awful. I'd go to school, I probably smelled to high heaven, But the idea of hygiene, we had a neighbor, her name was Jean, and it was hygiene. That was as hygiene that we knew of, because we didn't know of any other kind. And not to diss my parents, they did their best. I'm sure that they told me I had to clean myself more, but I didn't. I didn't wash my hands. Didn't know how to wash my hands. Didn't know anything. Brush my teeth. I'm lucky to even have any teeth. I have a good dentist, I guess. So anyway, went to school there. I dropped out of school in grade 11, only part way through. That was probably a big mistake, but I did. I didn't like it. And I was a rebellious child. So I went from job to job. I did worked in the grain elevator. That was my first job on my own, and living on my own. And then I didn't like the money there. Of course, I was greedy for money. I thought, money will solve my problem. So I went and worked in the oil fields, and that was I worked there for 7 years. And if you ever been out on the prairies in the wintertime, well, I'll tell you, minus 40 degrees, and there I was driving old trucks, and I remember driving a truck that had no heater in it. It had a heater, but it was like, that was your heat. So you had to wear a snowmobile suit to drive it anywhere with a pair of mitts on. But I guess it toughened me up, it made me, but it also made me hungry to get out of there, because I was tired of, washing my hair with Varsol. I'm not joking. I washed my hair with Varsol, and you get that crude oil on you, and that heavy Lloydminster crude it's like molasses, and when it comes out of the ground, it's like it looks like a sponge. You can actually hold it in your hand for a second until it just kind of melts over your hand, and everything you touch, if you get it on you, everything you touch just gets it. It's a real dirty business, and it's hard work. And back when I was doing it, I started when I was 16 or 7. I guess I was 17. But I remember going inside of these tanks. We'd have to clean tanks out and stuff, and they'd be full of gas. And it's a wonder we didn't drop dead, but just did it. I remember having one particular time I had to clean out a tank, and you had to flush it out with hot water. So, okay, in I go. I finally get to the back of the tank. I think the tank was like 15 feet in diameter or something. I right to the back, and they pass the hose into me, and of course I sink up into this stuff up to about my chest. And you're not getting out of that. Once you get down in there, forget it. The only way to get out is you had to blow that stuff out of there. And I remember the guy with the truck went and got the hot water and hooked up the hose, and he started. And, I was so scared, because if I let go of that hose, it'd just whip around inside. It'd beat you to death, I'll tell you. So I was hanging on to that thing with a death grip. And I remember the water was so hot. I just kept spraying the water out the door, and they shut it off. What's the matter? I go, the water was like almost boiling hot, so the hose was like really hot, and it was slipping out of my hands, and I was just deathly scared. But that's what we had to do. So he went and got another load of water. It wasn't quite as hot, and I washed the thing out. It took a few hours. But my point is, I had a real burn on to get out of there. I didn't really like it. But I put up with it, and then of course the cold winters, as I said. But finally, I'd had enough of that nonsense, and I got a chance to move away, and I moved out to Ontario, and I got a job in the film business. And for the first 12 years of the film business, I drove a truck and had bathrooms on it, and dressing rooms and everything. They called it a honey wagon, of course, and we all know what a honey wagon is. That was the thing to pump the poop. But this thing, anyway, that's what I did, and that's how I got my start in the film business, was cleaning toilets and driving a truck around, because at least I had my truck driving license. Well, finally, I decided I had enough of that, and I moved on, and I started, working on sets, and I did lighting, and now I'm a transport driver in the film industry, and that's what I do. Sometimes I'm what they call a co-captain, where I'm in charge of some guys, in charge of moves and so on, and not a big deal for me. It's not a big deal to be one, but I do it. And but here I am today. Now I'm married, and I have 4 children, and I have 2 grandchildren. So life is moving on, and I'm getting old. I'm going to be 60. So I guess that's not very old, and 60 years old. But in that time, I became a Christian, and I don't want to say that too loudly, because I'm not the best Christian you've ever seen. That's for darn sure. I try to be, but I guess what's my point of this? My point is, I guess, for guys who are watching this, like you think, you started out doing something that's really mundane or something you don't really like. Well, just keep moving up, and moving on, and if you see an opportunity, take it, because have faith. Something better will come along, and you'll do better. Okay, I guess that's my message, is that something better will come on. I don't have to drive trucks with no heaters in them anymore. I don't have to I don't have to flush tanks out with boiling hot water, and I don't have to get up to my chest in oil and muck either, right? So another little story I'll tell you. One time we, in the old days, what we do is when you had to empty a tank out, you'd dig a hole with a backhoe beside the door. There's a door, like a 4 foot by 2 foot door, hold on with a bunch of bolts. So what you did is you dig a hole beside the door, a little trench, and dig what they call a bell hole, and just so when you open the door, the muck and the oil and the crap would all come out into that. And the whole idea was so that it didn't running all everywhere. And I remember I was just a kid, and the guy running the backhoe thought it'd be really funny. He says, "Get in the bucket of the backhoe." He had to lift me up. I had to do some work on the tank, and he thought it'd be really funny to take it right over top the. Where's my hand here? He'd take it right over top the hole, and then he'd just dump me out in the oil. He thought that would be really funny. And I'll tell you, I never realized how agile I could be, because he went bang, bang, bang with the bucket, and I wouldn't let go. Finally, he brought me down, and I thought to myself, man, if I ever see you on the street, I'm going to kill you. But luckily, that didn't happen, and I learned a lesson, and if I saw the guy now, of course, I wouldn't be angry. I'd be, well, I'm glad I didn't get dumped into that pool of oil, because if you fell in it, well, good luck getting out of it, and you'd be just covered in it. So if you're going through these kind of things and you're doing something that's really crappy and you don't like, just have some faith and always be striving towards something better if you can, And sometimes something doesn't look so great. Sometimes you think, this isn't so great. Well, maybe it will be. There's always and there's opportunities everywhere. Always remember that. So have a nice day.